There are times in life when silence carries more strength than spoken words. Knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet is not just a habit, it's a discipline and often a clear sign of wisdom. Sometimes, no matter how thoughtful or reasonable your words are, they can end up making a situation worse. In those instances, silence becomes one of your most powerful tools, a quiet yet strong ally in handling life's complications. Just think about this. When someone lashes out at you in anger, what's your first reaction? Most people feel the need to respond, to defend themselves, to explain what they really meant, or even to argue. But reacting in that heated moment, when emotions are running high, rarely solves anything. It usually makes things worse. This happens because angry people often aren't thinking clearly. Their thoughts are clouded with emotion, and it stops them from truly hearing or understanding you. I remember years ago when a colleague misunderstood a situation and got really upset. He barged into my office, slammed the door, and started shouting accusations. Every part of me wanted to speak up, to tell him he was mistaken, to justify myself. But in that moment, I understood that saying anything wouldn't help. He had already made up his mind. So I stayed completely silent. I let him speak without interrupting or reacting. After a while, his anger ran out of steam. There was nothing fueling it anymore. When he was done, he walked out. I hadn't said a single word. Later that day, he came back calmer, ready to talk. He even apologized for his earlier behavior, and we were able to fix the misunderstanding without any hard feelings. If I had reacted during his angry outburst, things might have gotten worse. By staying quiet, I allowed the situation to settle and protected our working relationship. This is something worth remembering. When someone criticizes you while they're upset, you don't have to reply right away. Silence gives everyone time to cool down, to think more clearly, and to return to the situation with a better mindset. Keeping quiet in those moments helps you stay in control of yourself, your emotions, and the direction the situation takes. That self-control is a mark of real strength, not weakness. I once heard someone say, "You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to." That line stayed with me. Just because someone else is angry or emotional doesn't mean you have to join in and fight back. Sometimes the most powerful reply is no reply at all. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're agreeing with what's being said. It means you're choosing not to add more tension or make things worse. Imagine standing in front of a large campfire. The flames are already big and hot. Now, you have a choice. You can toss more wood into it, making the fire even bigger, or you can step back and let it burn down on its own. Silence is like stepping back. It lets the fire calm naturally. Speaking in anger is like tossing more wood into the flames. It can quickly get out of control. Still, silence isn't about avoiding important conversations. Often, it's just about waiting for the right time. After the emotions have cooled and everyone's thinking more clearly, that's when real conversations can happen. That's when you can solve problems with understanding and respect. But that can't happen if you jump into conflict too quickly. Sometimes, it's better to wait for the storm to pass before trying to move forward. Another important time to use silence is during moments of excitement. Imagine feeling really good. Things are going well, you're happy, and everything seems possible. In those moments, it's easy to make big promises. You might want to help everyone, take on new goals, or say yes to everything. It all seems doable when you're filled with excitement. But there's a risk here. When we're too excited, we sometimes say yes to things we can't really manage later. That excitement can blur our judgment and make us believe we can handle more than we actually can. Then, when that excitement fades, we're stuck with promises that feel too heavy to keep. Failing to follow through doesn't just affect how others see us, it affects how we see ourselves. I've seen this happen again and again. Someone gets fired up about an idea or opportunity and agrees to too many things. Maybe they promise to lead a difficult project or commit to tasks beyond their limits. At first it feels good, they're motivated and confident, but over time the pressure builds. They become stressed, tired, and eventually realize they can't do it all. They may have to cancel, step back, or admit they overpromised. This can hurt their relationships, their reputation, and even their confidence. Excitement is a great thing. It pushes us to grow and reach higher, but like fire, it needs to be controlled. If we let it burn too wild, it can harm more than it helps. That's why it's smart to slow down and think clearly before making big commitments when we're overly excited. Don't make promises on impulse. Give yourself some time to reflect and ask, is this something I can really do? I remember meeting a young man after a seminar. He was extremely inspired by what he'd heard. With great energy, he told me he was going to completely turn his life around. He had huge plans. He wanted to launch a new business, quit his job, run a marathon, and learn a new language, all within 6 months. I appreciated his drive, but I could tell he hadn't thought it through. A year later, I ran into him again. He looked defeated and tired. None of the big goals he had set were finished, and he felt like he had failed. But his failure wasn't because he lacked ambition or effort. It was because he had made too many unrealistic promises during a moment of high energy. If he had taken time to reflect, to narrow his focus, he might have succeeded in at least a few of those areas instead of feeling overwhelmed by all of them. So next time you feel a wave of excitement, take a moment before acting. Don't say yes to everything right away. Pause and ask yourself what's truly possible, what's most important, and what can wait. You're not putting out your excitement, you're directing it in a way that supports lasting progress. This habit sets you up for better results in the long run. Silence is equally powerful when you don't know all the details. We often see people jump into conversations or offer advice without understanding the full situation. It happens everywhere. People enjoy giving their opinions, even when they haven't taken the time to learn what's really going on. But this can cause confusion, misunderstandings, or even create new problems. I've found it's better to listen first, ask questions, and make sure you have all the information before speaking. I remember being in a business meeting where someone quickly offered solutions to a complex problem before understanding the issue. He was eager to contribute, but his advice didn't help. In fact, it slowed the team down. We had to go back and re-explain things, which wasted time and caused frustration. His eagerness wasn't the problem. It was his lack of patience. If he had stayed silent, listened more closely, and waited, his input might have been much more useful. Silence, in these cases, shows that you're thoughtful. It shows you care about getting things right rather than just being heard. And when you finally do speak, people are more likely to listen because your words are based on knowledge, not guesses. Choosing to stay quiet in these situations doesn't mean you're not participating. It means you're being wise and intentional with what you say and when you say it. In many cases, silence gives space for better thinking, clearer conversations, and stronger connections. By learning to wait, listen, and speak with purpose, we become more respected and more effective. Our relationships improve. People trust our words more, and inside we feel more at peace with ourselves. This is where true wisdom starts to show. Silence lets you collect more details, understand different sides, and avoid problems that could have been prevented. Silence lets you collect more details, understand different sides, and avoid problems that could have been prevented. I once worked on a major project with a group of leaders. One of the newer members wanted to make a good impression. During meetings, he always spoke up quickly, offering ideas and suggestions before fully grasping the problem. While his motivation was good, his quick responses often missed the mark. We had to pause to explain things again, which took up time and slowed progress. If he had taken a bit more time to understand the full picture, his contributions would have been much stronger. This doesn't mean you should stay silent forever. It means you should stay quiet long enough to learn. There's an old saying that goes, "It's better to stay quiet and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt." It may sound a bit funny, but there's deep truth in it. When you're unsure, saying less often makes you appear more thoughtful. But the true value of silence goes even further. It brings clarity, protects relationships, and helps you grow wiser in every part of life. Staying silent in these kinds of moments does more than just help you avoid saying something awkward. It actually builds trust. When people see that you only speak when you have something thoughtful to say, they pay more attention when you do speak up. Your words carry more meaning because they come from a place of understanding. You turn into someone others listen to, not because you talk a lot, but because what you say is meaningful. Silence becomes even more important when someone is sharing something personal, deep, or emotional. This is where a lot of people mess up. When someone tells you about their problems, fears, or emotional pain, the first reaction for many is to jump in with advice, try to fix things, or offer comforting words. But a lot of the time, people aren't really looking for answers or solutions. They just want someone to listen. I had to learn this the tough way, early in my career. I was mentoring a young guy who was having a really hard time. He opened up to me about his problems, his fears, and how unsure he felt. My first reaction was to start giving him advice, telling him what to do, what to think, and how to move forward. I honestly believed I was being helpful. But what I didn't understand then was that he didn't come to me looking for advice. He wasn't looking for someone to fix everything. What he needed was someone to hear him out, someone to make him feel seen and understood. By immediately jumping in with advice, I missed the chance to really connect with him. I missed the moment where my silence would have spoken louder than my words. Silence in times like that isn't about doing nothing, it's about being there, fully present. It shows the other person you care, that you're listening, and that you're making space for them to share honestly. Sometimes all someone needs is to feel heard. That simple act can give comfort and healing in a way words often can't. When someone is sharing something emotional or personal with you, don't rush to fill the silence with your thoughts or advice. Instead, give them the gift of your silence. Let them speak freely. Let your silence be a sign of your care, your attention, and your empathy. This way of listening teaches us something meaningful about ourselves, too. Think about how it feels when you're opening up to someone and they immediately jump in with advice. It can feel like they're not truly listening. Even if they mean well, they end up skipping over the emotional weight of what you're trying to say. That's why silence has so much power. It gives the other person the space to say what they need to say without fear of being judged, interrupted, or ignored. In doing this, you're showing them that what they're saying matters, that you value their feelings, and that you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. Silence also plays a key role when you're facing an important decision. People often rush into things, talking about their plans before they've thought everything through, but giving yourself time to be quiet and reflect can save you from making mistakes you'll later wish you could take back. I've seen this happen a lot in business. Someone comes up with a new idea, they get excited, and they start talking about it immediately. Before they've even looked at the risks or long-term effects, they've committed themselves. Later, they realize they didn't take enough time to think things over properly, and by then it's harder to back out. When you're about to make a big decision, being silent for a while gives you space to think clearly. It helps you gather details, weigh the pros and cons, and understand how you really feel. It keeps you from making fast decisions based just on emotions. And when you finally do speak or act, you'll be doing it with more clarity and certainty. I remember a time early in my professional life when I was offered what looked like a great business chance. It sounded exciting and full of promise. I almost said yes on the spot, but something in me told me to wait. So I paused and did more digging, spoke to people I trusted, and took a closer look. What I found was that the opportunity wasn't as great as it first looked. There were risks I hadn't noticed before. In the end, I turned it down. If I had jumped in too quickly, I would have made a choice I'd likely regret now. Being quiet gives you mental clarity. It helps your mind settle down and your thoughts become organized. You're able to hear your own inner voice more clearly. That kind of clear thinking often leads to better choices. So next time you have a big decision in front of you, don't rush it. Take your time, be quiet, think carefully, and when you do finally make your move, you'll be doing it with calm and confidence. Silence is also incredibly valuable when you're around someone you look up to, someone who's done what you hope to do, or someone who has a lot more knowledge than you. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to show off when they're around people like that. They talk too much about themselves, their achievements, or their ideas, thinking they will impress them. But real learning comes from listening, not talking. When you're around someone with experience and wisdom, focus on what you can learn. Don't feel like you have to prove yourself. The people who've truly done great things in life aren't moved by fancy talk. What they notice is your ability to stay quiet and take in what they're offering. Silence allows you to soak up their insights and grow. I remember one of my earliest mentors, Mr. Schul. He was a man of real success and wisdom. Whenever I was with him, I stayed quiet, I let him talk, and I absorbed every word. He had the kind of success and understanding I wanted to learn from. I knew that if I spent the time trying to impress him with what I already knew, I would miss the gold he had to share. I wasn't there to talk about myself. I was there to learn from him. Here's something that's really important to understand. People who've achieved greatness don't need you to tell them they're great. They already know that. What they respect is someone who knows when to be quiet and just listen. Sure, there's a time to ask questions, but the best questions come after you've really listened and taken in the basics. The biggest lessons I learned from Mr. Schul didn't even come from the things he said. They came from how he behaved, how he did business, and how he lived his life. If I had spent our time talking, I would have missed all of that. But because I was willing to stay silent, I picked up on things that went far beyond his words, his way of thinking, his presence, his approach to life. I wouldn't have noticed those things if I hadn't been listening. Think about this for a second. When you're talking, you're only repeating what you already know. But when you're listening, you're opening yourself up to learn something brand new. That's why being quiet around greatness is so important. It gives you a chance to grow in ways you never would on your own. The only way to take full advantage of that moment is to stop talking and truly listen. This doesn't just apply to people either. It applies to ideas, situations, or experiences that are bigger than you. Maybe it's a powerful idea you're trying to understand, or a challenge that's testing you. Silence gives you the chance to fully take in what's in front of you. It's in those quiet moments that things start to make sense, that you begin to see everything more clearly. Silence also teaches you to be humble. It reminds you that no matter how smart or skilled you think you are, there is always more to learn. It helps you stay in the mindset of a learner, which is one of the most powerful attitudes you can have. When you go through life as someone eager to learn, someone who's okay with staying quiet so they can grow, the world opens up to you in ways you never expected. There's a saying, the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. That kind of awareness doesn't come from speaking. It comes from listening, watching, and taking in what others have to offer. Real greatness is often calm and steady. It reveals itself to people who are patient, quiet, and open to learning. Now let's think about another situation where silence becomes incredibly important. When you're being provoked. Sometimes people will try to annoy you, push your limits, or trigger a reaction. Maybe they do it because they feel jealous, insecure, or simply because they enjoy creating conflict. Whatever their reasons may be, there will be times when others will try to get a reaction out of you, hoping you'll respond with anger or irritation. In those situations, it can feel very difficult not to react. Your heart might start beating faster, your face might feel warm, and you may feel the strong need to say something, to defend yourself or put the other person in their place. But here's the truth. Reacting in those moments often doesn't help you. When you let someone provoke you, you give them exactly what they were aiming for. You fall into their trap and might say or do something that you'll regret later. I once heard from a mentor, when someone tries to drag you into their storm, you don't have to follow. That simple idea stayed with me. It's what silence means during provocation. Choosing silence in such moments isn't a sign that you are weak or giving up. Instead, it shows your strength. It means you have the discipline to remain calm and not let the situation control you. It shows that you can rise above the moment and not allow someone else to take control of how you feel or react. I've seen this in many parts of life, whether in work, personal relationships, or daily situations. When someone says something unkind or tries to start an argument just to get a reaction, the one who remains silent often walks away with their dignity still in place. Being silent in those moments shows growth. It shows you aren't controlled by negative energy and that you have power over your own reactions. Surprisingly, when you choose silence instead of reacting, it often takes the other person by surprise. They expect you to argue or shout back. But when you don't play along, it confuses them. It leads them to think about their own actions. Your silence becomes like a mirror that reflects their negativity back at them, making them face what they've said or done. I remember working with a businessman who had a competitor that always tried to cause trouble by spreading lies and making negative public comments. At first, the businessman kept responding, trying to defend himself, but that only made things worse. It gave the other man more attention and energy to keep going. Then one day, the businessman made a different choice. He decided to stop reacting. The next time the competitor tried to get a reaction, he stayed quiet. He didn't reply to the insults or comments. He kept his focus on his own work. And what happened? Over time, the competitor gave up because he wasn't getting a response anymore. There was nothing to feed the conflict. That silence not only protected the businessman's name, but it also showed real strength and emotional maturity. That's the kind of power silence can have when someone is trying to provoke you. It shows self-control, quiet strength, and confidence. And silence doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or acting like the issue doesn't exist. It just means you're not letting the heat of the moment decide your reaction. It gives you space to think before you act. Silence gives you a pause, a chance to step back and think more clearly. In a world where people often feel pressure to reply quickly and say whatever comes to mind, silence becomes something valuable. It gives you time to breathe, gather your thoughts, and decide if it's even worth responding at all. So the next time someone tries to push your buttons or draw you into drama, think about using silence. Try to resist that sudden urge to talk back. Stay steady and let your silence send the message. You might be surprised by how strong and confident it makes you feel. Choosing silence in these kinds of situations doesn't mean you're running away or scared. It means you're protecting your peace and choosing what really matters to you. You don't need to respond to every negative comment or join every argument. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone or prove your point in every situation. Silence helps you remember that not all things deserve your time or energy. Learning to be silent at the right time is one of the most powerful habits you can develop. When you know when to speak and when to stay quiet, you not only manage challenges better, but you also find more calmness and inner power. You'll begin to understand that your peace is too valuable to give away to just anyone who tries to take it. The ability to stay silent when provoked is a true sign of strength and wisdom.